Crawford's a popular man, I commented. All that enthusiasm is almost endearing. That's why he's dangerous. Is he dangerous? Like all naive people. No one can resist him. One of the swimmers had lost her bearings in the pool, its waters so churned by flailing arms that it resembled a rutted field. Giving up, she swayed in the shoulder-high waves, losing her balance as she tried to wipe the foam from her eyes. Seeing her in difficulty, Crawford kicked off his espadrilles and leapt into the water beside her. He comforted the swimmer, held her by the waist, and let her rest against his chest. When she had recovered, he placed her in the arms forward position and calmed the waves so that she could regain her stroke. As she set off, he swam beside her, smiling when her rounded hips began to porpoise confidently. Damn, this fucking guy's exhausting. Impressive, I commented. Who is he exactly? Not even Bobby Crawford knows that. He's 3 different people before breakfast. Every morning he takes his personalities out of the wardrobe and decides which one he'll wear for the day. She spoke tartly, refusing to be taken in by Crawford's gallantries, but seemed unaware of the affectionate smile on her lips, like a lover remembering a past affair. She clearly resented Crawford's charm and confidence, and I wondered if she had once been taken in by them. Crawford would have found this moody and sharp-tongued doctor even more difficult to play than his tennis machine. Paula, aren't you a little hard on him? He seems rather engaging. Of course he is. Actually, I like him. He's a big puppy with a lot of strange ideas he doesn't quite know how to chew. The tennis bum who's taken an open university course in cultural studies and thinks paperback sociology is the answer to everything. He's a lot of fun. I want to talk to him about Frank. He must know all there is to know about Estrella DeMar. You bet. We sing to Bobby's hymn sheet now. He's changed our lives and practically put the clinic out of business. Before he arrived, it was one huge money-churning detox unit. Alcoholism, ennui, and benzodiazepine filled our beds. Bobby Crawford pops his head around the door and everyone sits up and rushes out to the tennis courts. He's an amazing man. I take it you know him well? Too well, she laughed at herself. I sound mean, don't I? You'll be glad to hear that he's not a good lover. Why not? He's not selfish enough. Selfish men make the best lovers. They're prepared to invest in the woman's pleasure so that they can collect an even bigger dividend for themselves. You look as if you might understand that. I'm trying not to. You're very frank, Paula. But that's the artful way of hiding things. Warming to her, I placed my hand around her waist. She hesitated and then leaned against me. Despite the show of self-control, she lacked confidence in herself, a trait I admired. At the same time, she was treating me with her body, trying to spur me on and remind me that Estrella DeMar was a cabinet of mysteries to which she might hold the key. Already I suspected that she knew far more about the fire and Frank's confession than she had told me. Leaving the balcony, I drew her into the shaded bedroom. As we stood together, I placed my hand on her breast, my index finger following the blue vein that rose to the surface of her sunburnt skin before descending into the warm deeps below her nipple. Oh my. She watched me uncritically, curious to see what I would do next. Without moving my hand from her breast, she said, Charles, this is your doctor speaking. You've had enough stress for one day. Would making love to you be very stressful? Making love to me is always stressful. Quite a few men in Estrella DeMar would confirm that. I don't want to visit the cemetery again. Next time I'm there, I'll read the epitaphs. Is it full of your lovers, Paula? 1 or 2. As they say, doctors can bury their mistakes. I touched the shadow that lay across her cheek like a dark cloud on a photographic film. Who bruised your face? That was a hard slap. It's nothing. She covered the bruise with her hand. I was working out in the gym. Someone ran into me. They play tough in Estrella DeMar. The other night in the car park. What happened? I'm not sure if it was a game, if it was a rough one. A friend of Crawford's was trying to rape a girl. The odd thing is she didn't seem to mind. That sounds like Estrella DeMar. Leaving me, she sat on the bed and smoothed the coverlet, as if searching for the imprint of Frank's body. For a few moments, she seemed to forget that I was standing in the room beside her. She glanced at her watch, reminding herself who she was. I have to go. Amazingly, there still are a few patients at the clinic. Of course. As we walked to the door, I asked, what made you become a doctor? Don't you think I'm a good one? I'm sure you're the best. Is your father a physician? He's a retired Qantas pilot. My mother left us when she met an Australian lawyer on a standby flight. She walked out on you? Just like that. I was 6 years old, but I could see she'd forgotten us even before she packed her suitcases. I was brought up by my father's sister, a gynecologist in Edinburgh. I was very happy, really, for the first time. I'm glad. She was a remarkable woman, a lifelong spinster, not too keen on men, but very keen on sex. She was amazingly realistic about everything, but especially sex. In many ways, she lived like a man. Take a lover, fuck all the best sex out of him, then throw him out. That's a hard philosophy, awfully close to a whore's. Why not? Paula watched me while I opened the door, pleasantly surprised to have shocked me. Whoring is something good few women have tried, more probably than you realize. That's one education most men never get. I followed her to the lift, admiring her brazen cheek. Before the doors closed, she leaned forward and kissed me on the mouth, her fingers lightly touching the bruises on my neck. Soothing the tender skin, I sat in the armchair and tried to ignore the orthopedic collar on the desk. I could taste Paula's kiss on my lips, the scent of lip gloss and American perfume. But passion, I knew, was not the message conveyed. The fingers on my neck had been a reminder, cued into the keyboard of bruises, that I needed to find fresh spores on the trail that led to the Hollingers' murder. I listened to the tennis machine firing its serves across the practice net, and to the splashing of the butterfly team. Searching for a cigarette, the best antidote to all this health and exercise, I pulled my jacket from the desk and hunted through its pockets. The cassette I had taken from Anne Hollinger's bedroom protruded from the inner pocket. I stood up and switched on the television set, inserting the cassette into the video player. If the tape had recorded a live satellite program while Anne sat in the bathroom with a needle in her arm, it would fix the exact moment when the fire engulfed the room. The tape spooled forward and the screen lit up to reveal an empty bedroom in an Art Deco apartment with white-on-white decor, ice-pale furnishings and recessed lights and porthole windows. A queen-sized bed with a blue satin spread and a quilted headboard occupied the center of the scene. A yellow teddy bear sat propped against the pillows, a sickly green tinge to his fur. Above the bed, a narrow sill carried a collection of pottery animals that might have belonged to a teenage girl. The handheld camera panned to the left as two women entered the room through an open, mirror-backed door. Both were in wedding regalia, the bride in a full-skirted gown of cream silk, a lace bodice giving way to a sunburnt neck and strong collarbones. Her face was hidden behind her veil, but I could see a pretty chin and strong mouth that reminded me of Alice Hollinger in her J. Arthur Rank days. The bridesmaid wore a calf-length gown, white gloves and toque hat, hair swept back from a deeply tanned face. They reminded me of the sunbathers at the Club Nautico, sleek, light years beyond any concept of boredom, and happiest lying on their backs. The camera followed them as they kicked off their shoes and began to loosen their clothing, eager to return to the sun loungers. The bridesmaid unbuttoned her gown while helping to unzip the bride's wedding dress, leaving them to share a joke and giggle into each other's ears. The camera focused on the teddy bear and began a heavy-handed zoom into its button-nosed face. The mirrored door opened again, reflecting a glimpse of a shaded balcony and the rooftops of Estrella de Mar. A second bridesmaid entered. A platinum-haired woman in her 40s with a heavily rouged face, barmaid's breasts straining through her jacket, neck and cleavage flushed by something more potent than sunshine. As she tottered about on one heel, I guessed that she had made an early detour from the church to the nearest bar. Stripped to their underwear, the women sat together on the bed, resting before they changed into their day clothes. Curiously, none of them looked at the friend shooting this amateur video record. They began to undress each other, fingers teasing at the bra straps, caressing their suntanned skins and smoothing away the pressure lines. The platinum-haired bridesmaid raised the bride's veil and kissed her mouth. She began to play with her breasts, smiling wide-eyed at the erect nipples as if witnessing a miracle of nature. The camera waited passively while the women fondled each other. As I watched this parodic lesbian scene, I was sure that none of the women was a professional actress. They played their roles like members of an amateur theatrical group, taking part in a body restoration farce. Resting from their embraces, the women looked up with mock surprise as a man's torso and hips entered the frame. He stood by the bed, penis erect, thighs and chest muscles like oiled meat. The passive bull-shouldered stud of countless porno films. For a moment, the camera touched the lower half of his face, and I almost recognized the heavy neck and chubby chin. The women sat forwards, displaying their breasts to him. Her face still veiled, the bride held his penis in her hands and began to suck its head in the distracted way of an 8-year-old with an overlarge candy bar. When she lay back and parted her thighs, I pressed the fast forward, waiting as the manic, jerky spasms rushed to their climax, and returned to play speed when the man withdrew and ejaculated, as custom demanded, across her breasts. Wow, this got really, really, really randy. This is Rick Stoll reporting. Sweat bathed the bride's shoulder and abdomen. She pulled back the veil and used a tissue to wipe away the semen. Again, I saw an echo of the rank charm school in her refined features and perky gaze. She sat up and smiled at the bridesmaids, using the veil to dry her cheeks. Needle punctures marked her arms, but she seemed in ruddy health, laughing when the bridesmaids slipped her arms into the wedding dress. The screen moved to the left, the camera jarred by the operator's confused hands. The lens steadied itself and caught the bodies of 2 naked men who had broken into the bedroom from the balcony and hurled themselves across the floor. The bridesmaids seized their waists and pulled them onto the bed. The bride alone seemed startled, trying to hide her naked body behind the wedding dress. She wrestled helplessly with a thick-set man with a hairy Arab back who seized her shoulders and threw her onto her face. I watched the rape run its course, trying to avoid the desperate eyes crushed into the satin bedspread. The bride was no longer acting or colluding with the camera. The lesbian porno film had been a setup designed to lure her to this anonymous apartment, the mise-en-scene for a real rape for which the bridesmaids, but not the heroine, had been prepared. In turn, the men assaulted the disheveled bride, moving through a prearranged repertoire of sexual acts. Their faces never appeared on screen, but the dark-skinned man was of middle age with the swarthy, fleshy arms of a nightclub bouncer. The younger of the two, with his tubular English body, seemed to be in his early 30s. He moved like a professional dancer, swiftly manipulating the victim's body as he found another posture, another forced entry point. Irritated by her frantic gasps, he seized the veil and stuffed it into her mouth. The film ended in a melee of copulating bodies. In a bizarre attempt at an artistic finale, the camera moved around the bed, briefly pausing beside the mirrored door. The photographer, I realized, was a woman. She wore a black bikini and a battery pack hung on a leather strap from her shoulder. A faint surgical scar ran from the small of her back and around her waist to her right hip. The film came to its final moments. The men withdrew from the room, a blur of greasy thighs and sweating buttocks. The bridesmaids waved at the camera, and the large-breasted blonde lay back and sat the teddy bear astride her midriff, laughing as she jiggled the stuffed toy. But I was looking at the bride. Set in her bruised features was a face still full of spirit. She wiped her eyes with a pillow and rubbed the torn skin of her arms and knees. Mascara ran in black tears onto her cheeks, and the smudged lipstick slewed her mouth to one side. Yet she managed to smile at the camera, the plucky starlet facing the masked lenses of Fleet Street, or a brave child swallowing an unpleasant medicine for her own good. Sitting with the crushed wedding dress in her hands, she turned from the camera and grinned at the man whose shadow could be seen on the wall beside the door.